So we finally got it, guys. The God rolls for Hung Jury, or at least one of the God rolls for Hung Jury, but we will be reviewing this weapon for both PvP players as well as PvE players. I know Hung Jury is known more as a PvE weapon, but I can tell you right now, guys, it can hang inside of PvP. It's no DMT, but it's got some nasty in it for sure. Now, this is a precision frame scout rifle, meaning the weapon's recoil pattern is extremely vertical. Simultaneously, it shoots at 180 rounds per minute. Actually, an archetype that I think a lot of PvE players like, think Nameless Midnight. Inside of PvP though, this is definitely far from the ideal archetype, as it does 55 damage per crit and 35 damage per body, sitting roughly at a 1.0 time to kill value, which is bad. Or at least bad in the concept that it requires 3 crits and 1 body. Essentially, lightweights like Might of Multi-Tool can secure a kill in 3 crits, 1 body, but in a faster TTK at 0.9 seconds. But where Hung Jury separates itself is the same way No Feelings back in Black Armory also separated itself. You see, despite this weapon actually being sunset, I still couldn't part from it. And that's simply because it was the only scout rifle in the game that can roll with box breathing until now. Which takes us to our God roll today. This weapon comes with Hammer Forge Rifling, Flared Magwell, which both of those perks are kind of like whatever. We'll talk about that a little more. Surplus, for that jump in handling, reload speed, and stability for each fully charged ability. Now, the difference between Surplus and Rapid Hit is Rapid Hit requires precision shots in order to beef up that stability. And I've stated a long time ago that Surplus, to me, is a more preferred perk, as you can get the upfront benefits by just having your neutral game abilities up. And the final perk there is Box Breathing. Aiming this weapon for a short period without firing grants bonus range and precision damage that resets after firing or exiting zoom. Now, Box Breathing, when you account for how long it takes to aim down sights, takes about a second and a half to activate. Now, the increase in range, I guess, is nice, but that's not the selling point. The selling point is the increase in damage, as it throws our damage up from 55 per crit to a whopping 88 to 89 damage per crit, meaning you could secure a kill in 3 crits with Box Breathing on Hung Jury in approximately 0.67 seconds. Fellas, that's fast. That's faster than the default TTK of many of our other weapons, only being beat out by things like Last Word, and even matching the TTK value of high impact pulse rifles that perfectly land all crits. Hung Jury with Box Breathing can achieve this without requiring a kill activation, and that's what makes it so deadly. It sneaks up on the enemy, and the last time they were 3-tapped this fast was not forgotten in Luna's Howl, back when they first released. Hung Jury with Box Breathing can achieve that, and again, that 3-tap can easily kill Guardians 9 resilience or less. Now, none of this matters if Hung Jury itself is not a good scout rifle. You're kind of having to jump through a number of hoops here. Aim down sights, wait a second and a half, hope nobody sneaks you with the fell winners, and then pray someone actually challenges you with a primary. And considering that this is a scout rifle, there's just not many scout rifle friendly maps. Bungie has this consistent idea of taking away long range maps, which would greatly benefit scout rifles, most notably this one right here. But even faced with those challenges, I gotta say, Hung Jury is a great feeling scout rifle. Just overall, it feels good. Whether it's due to the fact that it's an Omlon scout rifle, maybe it's just the first time I actually played with a scout rifle, a mouse and keyboard. It felt really good on controller back inside of D1, but it feels even better now. And I would say that Surplus has a lot to do with it. That increase in handling, as well as that stability bump, was extremely nice. Now, looking at the God rolls for PvP, I do think Box Breathing is the way to go, but that first column does offer a lot of other combinations outside of just Surplus. You've got Moving Target, Rapid Hits, Heating Up, which Heating Up might actually work, especially with the build that you're seeing in front of you, as I'm taking advantage of Charge with Light mods, most notably High Energy Fire, and we also have a mod called Precision Charge, which says that rapidly defeating combatants with precision kills from bows, hand cannons, and scout rifles will result in you becoming charged with light. Now, I know it states combatants, and normally combatants just mean enemies inside of PvE, but Precision Charge, at least from my experience, was proccing inside of PvP, or at least it was here recently. Maybe it's bugged, I don't know. But as you see here from this clip, I'm just chaining kill after kill after kill, resulting in charge with light, which yes, buffs the damage up to 66 damage per crit, which is also enough to 3-tap. So again, one of those things that you can just start getting the ball rolling with box breathing, snacks and multi-kills. All of a sudden, you got charged with light, high energy fire, stacks on stacks. Boom, you're 3-tapping for days. But I won't lie to you. At the end of the day, this is a scout rifle. And if Bungie actually gave us bigger, larger maps, and maybe even like a big team battle mode in the future, you would see more scout rifles, especially Hung Jury. If we had maps like First Light, or even some of our D2 maps that recently went away, Vostok, Meltdown, etc. Those are the kind of maps that would spread the game out enough, and you would see more desire for weapons like this one. Box breathing is an S tier perk on a 180 round per minute scout rifle. It kicks it up a notch. It allows it to exceed TTK values of all of the scout rifles. The only thing that's hindering Hung Jury is not actually Hung Jury itself, but simply the state of the game, the sandbox, as well as the map designs. Which takes us to the other unique trait that's found on this weapon, Firefly. Now, Firefly has now made a return, and it's going to be present on a lot of Vault of Glass weapons, pretty much all of them. But the thing about Firefly is notice that it also gives you AoE damage. That's solar, by the way, but it increases your reload speed upon precision kills. Again, the combination of like a weaker version of Outlaw and Dragonfly. Speaking of Dragonfly, can Dragonfly spec also increase the damage here of Firefly? As Dragonfly spec states that it increases the radius and damage of Dragonfly. Turns out, no. Matter of fact, sitting there and testing the damage numbers, and I compared this to our Royal Chase, which also comes with Dragonfly. Firefly damage does 81 AoE damage here on Hung Jury. Dragonfly damage is actually less at 65, but Dragonfly plus Dragonfly spec is higher at 96. I think I would still take Firefly over Dragonfly and Dragonfly spec though, simply because you can apply things like minor spec or even major spec, still have that increase in reload speed from Firefly, and of course, considering that it is in the kinetic slot and it states that it does solar damage, it should, in theory, spawn Warmind Cells, despite it being a kinetic, and kinetics do more damage inside of PvE. Now, what can increase the damage of both Firefly as well as Dragonfly, and of course a number of other weapons, is Energy Accelerant. It's disabled right now, it's buffing way too many weapons, and I have no idea when Bungie's gonna give us back this mod, but it's actually a fantastic mod on so many weapons. Essentially though, the AoE damage is doubled with this mod. The only other downside for not being able to slot Dragonfly spec is of course you don't get that increase in radius. So should you use this scout rifle inside of PvE? I think in Vault of Glass, I'm gonna try to use it, especially during the Oracle phase. This season, we do have anti-barrier scout rifle mod, so I can definitely see Hung Jury becoming a scout rifle I use, even inside of Grandmasters, especially where I'm trying to keep distance from my enemies. Although scout rifles are kind of in an identity crisis inside of PvE, and essentially because bows kind of do everything that scout rifles do, but better. They do more damage, they're more peak oriented, you don't have to square up in the middle of your enemies that can blast you with one blast. I understand why people don't like scout rifles right now inside of PvE. I haven't even sat down and damage compared it to other primaries inside of PvE. These days though, especially in Master and Grandmasters, I don't really rely on my primary ever. I rely on abilities. I rely on specials, heavy, and as for my primary weapon, I normally just utilize my primary as a means of dealing with champions, which is why this season, I wish Hung Jury would have rolled with Disruption Break. I know that doesn't necessarily make sense, it's a kinetic, but Bungie also made an exception for Firefly. However, we do have a scout rifle coming this season, Vision of Confluence, which can roll with Disruption Break, and that scout rifle is a 180 as well. Hung Jury's other traits though that you may want to consider, One for All and Subsistence together, which is a very nice combo, especially since Subsistence did get a buff. Adrenaline Junkie, for someone like myself that does like to rock grenade-based builds, Controverse Hold, Vortex Grenades, Adrenaline Junkie would be fantastic here, as well as Explosive Payload, Wellspring, Box Breathing, not necessarily a trait to bring inside of PvE. Would I choose Firefly over all of these other traits? I don't know, that's the thing. In that column, I like One for All. I like Adrenaline Junkie. I like Wellspring. So I believe there is some good trait combinations there, and of course, the weapon's only gonna get better when the adept versions of this weapon comes out. For me right now though, I'm happy to have my Box Breathing roll back, and I think the next roll I'm gonna hunt for, especially for the adept version, is actually heating up and Box Breathing together. I really want to try that combination out. Outside of that though, guys, recognize that this is a scout rifle, and other weapon types I feel like you don't have to adhere completely to its playstyle, but scout rifles, especially inside of PvP, you have to lane. You have to do shenanigans like this and float in the sky to get a peek in on enemies. But if you do have the patience to proc Box Breathing, Hung Jury can be a very nasty scout rifle for you. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.